William Blake, one of the lights of early English Romanticism, was a poet, visionary, engraver, printmaker, and illustrator. In many ways, he was one of the first true multimedia artists who merged word and image into an integrated narration. Rebel, radical, and revolutionary, he lived and worked for changes both in the social order and in the minds of men. Investigating into good and evil, he rejected industrial revolution in England. He saw it as a corruption of dark satanic mills and called to celebrate the beauty of nature. Worshipping omnipotence of nature, Blake thought of Newton's scientific approach to nature as reductive and sterile. He depicted his critique in a painting by the scientist name. Young Newton is shown at the bottom of the sea, focused on his compass and diagram, and blind to the colorful rocks behind him. Blake loved the world of spirituality and abominated institutionalized religion, especially when it was allied with government. He sought to establish his own relationship with God, and the complexity of this relationship was central to his art and poetry. Regarded as an unfortunate lunatic by the majority of his contemporaries, nowadays he is a beloved son of his country. Last year, to promote William Blake's exhibition, Tate Britain Museum made reality his dream of showing his works at enormous scale. In the video, the unique and consistent universe of his images transcends the boundaries of frames and pages, marrying his vision with real life. He believed that human imagination was the basic operating system of humanity. The idea let him go deep into human's mind and bring back remarkably prophetic visions of man's internal world. Blake's thinking predicted the structure of matter. His views on the involved infinite nature of energy anticipated physicists Niels Bohr and David Bohm. Contemplating the structure of the mind, his theories prefigured Freud and Jung. The greatest time for him was the 1790s, when he was making his most famous and influential illuminated books. As the adjective suggests, the texts were illuminated with designs, interweaving paragraphs of the text with images. Conventionally, if a bookseller would decide that the manuscript was to be published, he would commission an artist to make the illustrations and then an engraver to copy them. Blake realized that if he wrote his text in reverse on the copy plate, then drew his design in interleaving, he could print both his text and illustration in the same press in his own studio. The innovation gave him absolute freedom and a way to circumvent political constraints that were imposed by the forms of censorship at the time. The legend says that the idea of the new technique was offered him in a dream by his late and strongly missed brother Robert. He followed the ghostly guidance to the letter, and in 1789, 19 poems of the Songs of Innocence were published. In 1794, he combined the early poems with 26 more titled Songs of Experience, and presented both collections as the two contrary states of the human soul. Following mysterious and uncanny ways of creativity, William Blake's Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience laid foundations for the same title albums by Irish rock band U2. What bridges a gap in about 200 years is an idea of a man going through various stages of innocence and experience. It is significant how the two states are almost always intertwined and if not put in conflict in both versions. In Holy Thursday poem and Songs of Innocence, Blake is a posing image of innocent children of charity schools singing in the church to the grey-headed beadles, aged men, who act like they are guardians and press them. The same title poem in the Songs of Experience is reinforcing the idea of the society being unjust to the children. The poem loses its lightness and the persona loses hope for the children's destiny. On one hand, Blake is questioning the world of God letting the children suffer. On the other hand, he challenges the very image of Great Britain as a rich and civilized country. Taking over from Blake with his harsh critique on social order, in their song Sleep Like a Baby Tonight, U2 are displaying the issue of children abused by those in power in church. Blake, in turn, in The Garden of Love, is attacking a new chapel built in Lambeth near his at the time home. The chapel was built by subscription. Those who paid to build it could enter it. Blake was appalled at the idea that those who could not pay would be excluded from Christianity's Garden of Love. In its core, though, the Garden of Love poem is a point where Blake's poetic persona turns from childhood innocence to adult experience. In the title, he is referring to Adam and Eve's passage to knowledge in the Garden of Eden. At the same time, sweet flowers turned to the tombstones symbolize dramatically crushed desires of innocence. The idea of an experienced, seasoned and wounded man is even extended in the video for the U2 song For Someone. Initially, the song is dedicated to the lead singer's first time falling in love with his wife as teenagers. But the video tells a very different story of a man that served his sentence in prison and is about to become free. His daughter, whom he hasn't seen for a long time, is driving him home. The camera captures the moment of guilt he feels for the lived life and subtle hope that his daughter's presence will heal his heart, as innocence always does. Mesmerized by the power and beauty of nature, having intense polemics with God, arguing institution of church, politics, social inequality and injustice, in their albums, U2 seem to echo William Blake's romantic ideology and enter an intertextual conversation with him. To conclude the story of Blake's inexhaustible imagination, it should be said that other than U2, he has inspired numerous artists. Rossetti, Yeats, and Jim Morrison are among them.